There was a moment in my life when I hit the ground so hard. I genuinely believed I would never get back up. Not because the fall was too big, but because I had been falling for so long, I had forgotten what standing felt like. I want to talk to you today about that moment, because I have a feeling you know exactly what I mean, that maybe your fall looked different from mine. Maybe it was a relationship that ended and took a piece of you with it. Maybe it was a business that didn't make it, a job you lost, a friendship that quietly dissolved, a version of yourself you worked so hard to build that just crumbled one day. And you stood there in the rubble, looking around, thinking, how did I get here? Mine started on an ordinary Tuesday. There was nothing special about the day. No dramatic warning signs. I woke up, made coffee, and by noon, everything I had spent 3 years building was gone. The project failed. The money was gone. The people I had trusted had moved on. And I was left standing in an empty room, holding the pieces of something I had genuinely believed in. But the failure itself wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was the silence after. You know that silence? When the dust settles and the phone stops ringing and the distraction runs out and it's just you, alone with your own thoughts. That silence is brutal, because in that silence, your mind doesn't ask what went wrong. It asks something far more dangerous. It asks, what is wrong with me? And I sat with that question for months. I stopped showing up for things. Not dramatically, not in a way anyone around me could clearly see. I still answered messages. I still smiled when I needed to. I still said I'm fine every single time someone asked, because explaining the truth felt like too much effort. But inside, I had gone very, very quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peaceful. It's numb. The kind of quiet where you're going through the motions of your life, but you're not really in it anymore. That is the version of breaking that nobody talks about. The quiet version, where you're not falling apart in public, you're just fading. And it's dangerous precisely because from the outside, you look okay. I was not okay. 4 months passed like that. And during those 4 months, I became very good at two things: pretending and waiting. Waiting for something outside of me to change so that I could finally feel better. Waiting for motivation to arrive. Waiting for a sign. Waiting for someone to come along and pull me out. Nobody came. Motivation didn't arrive. The sign never showed up. But one afternoon, I was scrolling through my phone, avoiding my own life as usual, and I came across someone I knew. Someone who had failed just as publicly as I had, about a year before me. And they had launched something new. It was working. It looked alive, and something cracked open in my chest. Not inspiration. I want to be honest, it wasn't that clean. It was anger. Pure, unfiltered anger. Why them? Why are they moving and I'm still here, sitting on this floor? And then, for the first time in 4 months, a different question entered my mind. Why am I still on this floor? Not why did this happen to me? Not why is life unfair? Just why am I still choosing to stay here? That question changed something. Now I want to be clear. There was no magical moment after that. No lightning bolt. No sudden surge of energy where I leapt up and conquered everything. The turning point in my life was, honestly, embarrassingly small. I made my bed. That was it. That was day one. I had read somewhere that making your bed is a small act of control, a signal to your own brain that you are in charge of something. I didn't fully believe it, but I had nothing to lose. So I made the bed. Then I made tea. Then I went outside for 10 minutes, not to exercise, not to be productive, just to feel the air. Nothing changed that day. The failure was still real. The shame was still sitting heavy in my chest. The bank account was still a disaster. But I had done 3 small things. And the next day, I did 3 small things again. And the day after that dot here is what I learned about recovery. And I need you to hear this carefully. You do not heal by fixing everything at once. You heal by choosing one small action over and over until those actions start to become part of who you are. Discipline is not something you either have or you don't. It is something you build, slowly, with resistance. On the days you don't feel like it, especially on those days, I started writing. Not a plan, not a strategy, just thoughts. What had happened, what I actually felt about it, what I wanted underneath all the pressure and expectation I had been carrying. And something came out of those pages that I did not expect. Clarity. I realized I had been building the wrong thing. Not the wrong business, the wrong version of myself. I had been performing, chasing validation, trying to prove something to people who weren't even paying attention. And the failure, as brutal as it was, had stripped all of that away. And underneath it, for the first time in years, I could see who I actually was. Without the performance, without the pressure. I reached out to people I had been too proud to call. I asked for help, not to be rescued, just to be heard. I had honest conversations. The kind where you actually say, I am not okay, and the other person says, I know. I've been there too. Those conversations reminded me that I was not uniquely broken. I was just human, and I started again. Smaller this time. No big announcements. No pressure to prove anything. Just work. Honest, quiet, consistent work. Some days I moved quickly. Most days I moved slowly. A few days I barely moved at all. But I kept one rule that I had given myself. Don't quit on a bad day. Sleep on it. Decide tomorrow. That rule saved me more times than I can count. And slowly, almost without me noticing, things began to change. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But they changed. There is a concept in Japanese art called kintsugi. It is the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. The philosophy behind it is this. A breakage is part of the history of the object. You don't hide it. You don't throw the broken piece away. You repair it, and you highlight the repair. You make the cracks visible. Because the cracks are where the beauty is. That is what I want you to understand about your own story. You are not ruined because you broke. You are not disqualified because you fell. The cracks in you, the ones you are most ashamed of, the ones you try so hard to hide, those are not your weakness. Those are where your depth lives. Those are the parts of you that know something, that have been through something, that have earned something most people never will. If you are in the middle of your fall right now, if you are sitting on that floor, in that silence, wondering if it's ever going to get better, I need you to hear this. It gets better. Not immediately. Not magically. But it gets better. And you are not your failure. You are not the worst thing that happened to you. You are not the sum of your worst days or your biggest mistakes or the disappointment you saw in other people's eyes when things went wrong. You are what you choose to do next. People who have moved this world, the ones whose names we remember, and the countless ones we don't. They were not people who never fell. They were people who fell, stayed down for a while, and then got back up. Not because they had some special strength the rest of us lack, but because they made a decision, quietly, stubbornly, on some ordinary morning, that the floor was not where their story ended. I still have hard days. I think everyone does. There are mornings when the old fear comes back. When the voice in my head says, "You're not enough. You'll fail again. Who do you think you are?" But now I know something I didn't know before. That voice lies. It has always lied. And so today, whatever you're carrying, whatever floor you're sitting on, whatever version of broken you feel right now, I'm asking you for one thing. Don't quit today. Not because it's easy. Not because the path is clear. But because you are still here. And as long as you are still here, the story is not over. You fell. The story is not over. You fell.